Good morning and welcome to Better Living Radio on 1280 and 95.3 WHVR. Better Living is brought to you by UPMC Pinnacle Hanover. It's Bill O'Brien in the house. Quick reminder, we are on 1280 AM, 95.3 FM. You can also listen via your computer speakers. Just log on to foreveryork.com. Click on Listen Live in WHVR and you have us there. And two other ways, whether you carry an Android or iPhone device, you can get the apps for your Droid or iPhone at the App Store or Google Play Store. Just to search Forever Radio. It's absolutely free. Two more ways to listen to all the great information, great conversation on WHVR, the Better Living Radio Show. A regular back on the radio show. You know him, you love him. He's always bringing lots of energy, a smiling face. Would you please welcome to the show Adam Bennett, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, here we are. Good to be back.
Usually you're by yourself. Occasionally you bring a guest, but you brought somebody along with you. What's the story here? You brought someone else along. Every guy, every gal needs to have a good wing woman, a good wingman, somebody from a part of the UPMC Pinnacle Hanover family. And we're kind of extending the reach to the UPMC Pinnacle Memorial family.
That's right. Now that we've undergone this very exciting transition to being a part of the larger UPMC Pinnacle family, what we've had the opportunity to do is to expand a little bit eastward and northward, I guess, if that's a word.
Northeast,
and
whatever.
Northeast. That would have been the right way to say it.
I guess actually I got the word, I guess it was, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, somebody said something to me about the region. So this is, I guess, now the southern region. Right. Is that right? So basically UPMC Pinnacle out of Harrisburg, which is where the mothership is. If you look south, if you look southwest or southeast, basically York, Hanover, Gettysburg, the entire southern region of UPMC Pinnacle.
Yeah. So the nice thing is that this mystery guest that's sitting beside us and with us here this morning is from what was formerly known as Memorial Hospital. It's now UPMC Pinnacle Memorial. And Pam Miller and I have been working together for several years now in the tobacco cessation and education field.
I think it's kind of cool because you and I have talked on the radio show and you've said tobacco cessation and what you've been doing for years has known no boundaries. I mean, basically, you've made sure that you've had your tentacles, and I say that in the best possible way. You've had your tentacles into various things south across the Mason-Dixon, so you can give people information. You can turn people on. If somebody's listening to the radio show and they're in Westminster or they're across into Carroll County or Frederick County, Maryland, you can say, hey, I can point you in the direction of somebody there. Likewise, so I guess the aforementioned Pamela Miller, you've been working with her even prior to the fact that you guys are all now part of the same large organization, which is kind of cool.
It's very cool. Because, as I've been saying for over a decade now, and I just realized it's been over a decade that I've been coming on this radio program doing this.
That's amazing.
Which is almost kind of hard to believe in a sense. But I've been saying for over a decade that when it comes to what I have the good fortune to be able to do as a part of my job, I don't have to worry about, turf and, whose market is this and whose market is that. The people that work in what we call tobacco control have always been a really small, tight-knit group of people who care about the work that we do.
Dedicated.
And have to work closely together because there's so few of us to be able to make handoffs. So if somebody calls me after hearing me on the show here and they're, it's just not practical for them to come to Hanover for the help that they want.
Right.
Then I could look up somebody like Pam and say, hey, Pam, I've got somebody that's interested in help, but they live a whole lot closer to where you're working.
Right.
And I know and I can trust what she does, and I can make that warm handoff for a person to get the help that they want and need. And now that we're part of this one unified UPMC Pinnacle family, Pam and I have been saying for years, it's like we're coworkers, and now we officially are.
How cool is that? So we welcome Pam Miller to the radio show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Welcome to the radio family. So this is where the spotlight's on you, and we quiz you a little bit. So how long have you been doing this? How long have you been a part? Obviously, Adam's saying you guys have been having chats for years about this. How long have you been doing this?
I actually stepped into this role at the end of 2012.
Okay.
So it'll be going on 6 years here, and I can't believe everything that's changed in the landscape of tobacco. There's been a lot of changes, but again, still very similar. What we do is to help people in this struggle, and everyone is deserving of this when we talk about tobacco and quitting, and it's a great thing.
How did you get into that? Prior to 2012, what were you doing prior to that?
Well, I'm a respiratory therapist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've actually been a respiratory therapist for many years.
See, that's one of those things where as soon as I hear that, though, I'm thinking respiratory therapy. Okay, so you know a little bit about the effects of smoking and the effects of lung issues as a respiratory therapist.
Absolutely. It was a big part of my work, people that I worked with, and what I saw with the effects of tobacco working as a respiratory therapist.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until years later that I had a wonderful opportunity to train and really learn more about tobacco and the connections when we talk about nicotine and tobacco products and smoking, and had a chance to train and at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and with tobacco dependence. So it really opened up a whole new world for me when working with people and helping people in this struggle. So it's been amazing.
I have to ask you, and this is like total sidebar. Hopefully you were in Minnesota for your training during warmer weather months, not colder weather months.
Yes, in June.
Yeah, because there's like 3 months of summer and then the rest of the year is winter in Minnesota. Right?
She was much smarter than I was. I went and did mine in November. Oh. And you haven't known. Okay, Pennsylvania, like Maryland, everybody who's listening to us right now, you don't know cold until you spend November or part of December in Rochester, Minnesota. So
I bet it was. I bet it was freezing.
It was invigorating. That's the way I make myself feel better. But yeah, Pam brings a whole different element to the table when we talk about doing the kind of work that we do. And I think that's the most exciting part for me about, having this network of people that I know. Because coming from her background as a respiratory therapist, my background is more in the counseling, psychology side of things. It's really great to know that you have somebody you can go to that knows a little different angle on it. And her training as a respiratory therapist is totally different.
The fact, you bring that up, and it's funny because total sidebar, but with that, with this collaboration, had a couple of cardiologists from Harrisburg on the radio show. Dr. Mumtaz is a cardiac surgeon, and Dr. Gada is a cardiologist, who, by the way, is also an MBA. And it's interesting with Dr. Mumtaz and Gada talking about Dr. Gilbert and a lot of the other folks with cardiology in Hanover. They were talking about all these guys and gals who are part of this whole cardiology thing where talking about cardiology, and you have all these different people that come from different backgrounds. They're all trained in the same thing. It's like what you're saying with, with this program that you are both involved in, different eyes and different perspective, and kind of coming into this specialty and this awesome work that you do was just a different set of eyes, different view. And bringing those things together has to be beneficial for all the people you help.
It is. And one of the things that we noticed right off the bat, after this all kind of took shape and became official, I had the chance to sit down with Pam and our counterpart, Shannon, who works out of Harrisburg at Pinnacle's facility there. And the three of us were able to sit down together at a meeting that was dedicated just to talking about, okay, so how can we bring together the best ideas from each of our individual programs and try to figure out a way to all improve together by streamlining what we do. And that's one of the greatest things about this, I think, is that we now have a streamlined way to do just that. We can talk outside of work, and I can call a counterpart somewhere else, just like a cardiologist could.
Right.
Consult with somebody that you know about a tough case or a situation. But it makes it a lot easier when we can streamline our processes together. Obviously, we have a better communication plan by sending out a unified message that's going to reach out to different places.
Right.
But also because then we can bat things back and forth. Pam's going to be helping me out with some health fairs coming up by coming over to the Hanover way.
Hey, you got second and third cousins. You got close friends, but like tight family is tight family. Yeah. And, that's definitely kind of cool.
It's a great thing. And Adam will be coming to York to do some things, so to see our groups and some of our classes, so it'll be great.
It's great hearing about these things. And I've talked to Adam on the radio show before about this. It's not that long ago. You've been a guest on the radio show for 10 years, and you multiply 10 times 5, and not that long ago, physicians, doctors were on television promoting cigarettes, and which cigarette is the, you know what I'm saying? I mean, when our parents and our grandparents, smoking was part of the American way. Mm-hmm. It was smoking while you sit in a restaurant. Now you guys, the business you're in with healthcare, I mean, hospitals were some of the first to say, okay, no more smoking lounges in hospitals. That's just, it's crazy when you think about that. At one time, there were smoking lounges in the hospital.
Yeah, the culture shift has been massive, and that's where we've been in a very unique position. And I was hoping that Pam would be able to kind of talk about her perspective and what she's seen over in York. But that culture shift, and yes, it is something that we have talked about many times here. Mm-hmm. And it's exciting in a way because we're now starting to see more and more people being accepting of this notion that, it's normal not to smoke in all these places now.
Right.
I had a conversation with somebody just last week, and he was saying to me, it seems crazy to think that, I used to go and light up a cigarette after I got done eating with my family at this restaurant. But he said, now I go down to Maryland and we go to some restaurants and we go to places up here in PA, and, I think I take for granted how much I like the fact that I don't have to smell that while I'm eating. And he said, I only noticed it because I went to a place not too long ago when we were out of state, and they still allowed smoking in the restaurant. And this guy is a smoker, mind you. He said, it was really obnoxious, and I didn't realize how much I liked it. And he said, at first I didn't like people like you, meaning me, because we were the ones out there talking about what the advantages of this legislation in 2008 was, making places smoke-free. He says, I didn't like people like you at first, but now it's really not such a bad thing, and I appreciate the fact that somebody opened our eyes to this. So it's, again, changing the culture.
It's one of those very personal things that I think when a lot of the legislation in our backyard here and in other states, I think there were businesses that truly, they were scared. They were afraid that they were going to lose business, that they were going to go out of business because, okay, wait a minute, and none of us are huge fans of the government. I mean, you guys have to deal with the government as much as broadcasters do. And, thankfully, we don't have to you don't have to sign your HIPAA forms before you came on to do the radio show. Right. But, I mean, various regulations and things like that. But the minute those regulations were coming into play in the restaurant business, a lot of owners were freaking out and thinking, okay, this is the end of our business. A bulk of our business smokes, and what's going to happen? And I think a lot of us, even smokers, as you said, have embraced in the restaurant, around the food. I see folks that will, in their homes, have dinner parties or have a holiday party or something like that. It's their house, and they'll go outside for a smoke break. They don't smoke in their house anymore.
Yeah. And one thing that I was going to ask Pam to really chime in on was this idea of how we communicate with the people that we serve. I know that's a really broad general statement, but when you talk about changing people's attitudes and opening up their minds, one thing we've talked about many times here on the show together is that a lot of people feel stigmatized that I'm a tobacco user. It's politically incorrect. Society looks down on me. And we have to take a little different approach with that in terms of how we communicate. And that's, Pam, what you speak really well to this. How would you describe that relationship?
That's a great point that you make. When we talk to people in the process of quitting tobacco, or even if they haven't quite thought about it, how do we approach someone? I always like to say we're all human. We all do things. Smoking doesn't make somebody bad or very good people. But sometimes we get down on ourselves too, and I don't want to add to that. It's how can we be positive about this and helpful? What's the best approach? So what we've learned in our training and our education is some of these positive approaches to help people. What would be the most helpful? That's one of my questions that I start with someone. What would help you the most in this journey, or if you're even thinking about quitting smoking? And to bring it back to what you were talking about, the smoke-free laws and in restaurants and indoor places, sometimes that's an important first step. Wow, that sort of helps me, these rules, and it's sort of a softer approach. It doesn't mean, I have to quit smoking tomorrow, but this could be a step in that direction. Or what are my thoughts, or how does the rules help when it comes to this? So, what's the best helpful approach? And I start out with that. What would help you the most?
That has to be refreshing to some, because I'm sure some folks think, okay, I'm going to make this phone call. I'm going to attend this meeting. This lady Pam, I talked to her on the phone. She seems nice enough. Then I'm going to get in there in the office or in this group of smokers, and she's going to say, all right, you're all going to quit today. It's got to happen by 3 this afternoon.
Absolutely. And people do say that to me. Wow, I feel better. It's okay. You know, and I always say I don't have a whip or a chain, or I'm not this, this mean person. And but I do think it goes with that stigma, or but we know the important health effects. We know the harms. And so it usually comes from a good place. But is it the best approach? Again, we're all people, and what's the most helpful? So I start out with that. What would help you the most? And that's when, wow, they're asking that. She's asking me what would help me. And so that really can open up some conversation and some doors. So.
If you put something back into someone's hands like that, empowering them to buy in and make the decision.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It really is all in the approach. When you said that, the approach that we take, so often I think we're on the defense when we're doing something we know we shouldn't be doing. And the majority of people that I've met in my time working in this field, they realize that what they're doing, no matter what product they're using, is hurting them. I mean, you can't hide under that rock anymore. If we'd have been having this conversation 30 or 40 years ago, and the science wasn't there to say, hey, look, this is something that's brand new, we've never studied this before, and even though the companies have been advertising tobacco as something that's safe and fashionable and doctors approve of it, we can't hide under that rock. And everybody now pretty well knows I shouldn't be doing this. And with that in mind, that brings our defenses up, especially when we're going to sit down with a complete stranger that is going to be targeting in on this tobacco use behavior that my doctor says that I need to change, and I'm not really sure I want to. And now all of a sudden this wall goes up because it's, okay, what is she or Adam going to tell me that is going to try to convince me to change?
It's got to be a tough place for smokers for whatever reason, even if they know as much as they know. All of a sudden you're at work, and what used to be a little tiny smoking area over on the far end of the parking lot, now your campus is going completely smoke-free. You're living at home. You have a new significant other. You're newly married, or a new relationship, or whatever. Or there's a new baby in the house, and all of a sudden, it's like I know it's bad, but quit. Everybody's like picking on me, even if nobody's saying anything. It's got to feel like everybody is on your butt about smoking.
Yeah.
When you bring that up, that's another great point. What does that person need when we talk about support? We talk about how there's different kinds of support in this process for quitting, and what are some of the more effective strategies or helpful hints versus not helpful. So effective and ineffective support. So, and really it's up to that person. What would help me the most? What do I need? But sometimes we're not used to asking that. At UPMC Pinnacle Memorial, we do have a nicotine support group that we talk about. What would help? It's a very caring atmosphere. It doesn't matter what product that you're using, and it doesn't matter what process of stage you are quitting. You can come in the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6:30 and talk about it and share with each other. And those common experiences can really help.
We're going to talk more about that. We're going to take a short break, but I would like to make sure when we're having these conversations, when Adam's in the room, and Pam, it's great to have you here, that it is tobacco cessation. It's not just cigarettes. It's not just cigars. It's smokeless. It's dip. It's snuff. It's anything that is a tobacco product. They are all carcinogens. They are all not good for you. And Pam Pam and Adam are here to talk about that and the tobacco cessation that I like to say is now supersized under the umbrella of UPMC Pinnacle with Hanover, with Memorial, with the Mid-State, with the Southern region. It's a great opportunity if you're a smoker, if you're a dipper, if you're involved in any tobacco stuff, to raise your hand and say, hey, you know what? Let me at least find some more information out. Short break, and we're back with more on Better Living, brought to you by UPMC Pinnacle Hanover in just a moment. Welcome back to Better Living on 1280 and 95.3 WHVR. Better Living is brought to you by UPMC Pinnacle Hanover. It's Bill O'Brien in the house, along with Adam Bennett, a regular on the radio show, part of the tobacco cessation program with UPMC Pinnacle Hanover. Always good to have you on the show, Adam. You know that. Yeah. And along for the ride today from UPMC Pinnacle Memorial, Pam Miller. Welcome to the radio show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I had a chance to meet Pam, by the way. Awesome event at the topping off ceremony.
It was
last Thursday.
Yes. It was a great event. It was, and the weather held out. There was a little bit of rain, but it did hold out for the most part. And great speakers, and with the beam, everyone signed the beam.
That was cool. That was very cool to actually have that beam from the new Memorial Hospital. And also, that's the first time, as much as I try to get around, that's the first time I had been up on the hill there at that facility, like looking at the view from that facility. It was one of those things, and then that's what I said to numerous folks. They said, hey, you're here. I'm like, are you kidding? How often businesses come and go, and businesses open and close and things like that, but like a new hospital facility, a new building, that doesn't happen like all the time. Mm-hmm. So I was like, it was cool to be a part of that, and good to meet you there. And that's when I was talking to Pam. I said, so you're going to be on the radio show on Monday? You're nervous? And I was like, not at all. I got this.
I don't know if I said that. But
she's like, God, no big deal. We're talking about tobacco cessation and the awesome work that you do with the program with UPMC Pinnacle in Hanover, Memorial, Harrisburg, all throughout the region and the state now. A lot of folks hear tobacco cessation and immediately they think cigarettes. They don't think about smokeless and snuff and those things that are just as bad in their own wicked, terrible way.
Right. And when we talk about tobacco, there's many, many products out on the market today. We've seen a shift and change when it comes to those products. So there's been a big change when it comes to who's using what products are we talking about.
When you talk to some of the younger people, and hopefully the younger people, when I say younger, I'm blown away. I'm not in your business. I'm a radio guy, but I am blown away at the number of high schoolers and college students and 20-somethings that smoke or dip or do any of this stuff because there's so much more information in their face, much more so than when any one of us were in school in this room. I mean, it progressed over the past 10, 20, 30 years, but I mean now today within the past 10 years, you graduate when you're roughly 18, so if you're somewhere between 18 and 28, that it's been in your face for a while, and yet still a lot of them are doing it as bad as they know it is for them.
It's a really timely point that you brought up. Because I was just recently speaking at Southwestern High School to ninth graders.
Right in our backyard.
The week prior to that, we were at Mannheim Elementary, and we spoke to a group of fifth graders there. And some people have said to me, why are you even going and talking to fifth graders
Seriously,
about this?
You were asked that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I tell people the kind of stuff we go out and do, and I said, I'm really excited about it because, working with this group of fifth graders, let me tell you, if you haven't been around a fifth grader in a while, it's a very, very fun and invigorating age group.
They are different than they were fifth graders even 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's exciting to go in with that kind of energy and be able to talk about this. We have to change up our message a little bit, mind you, because we're not dealing with adults now. We're not even dealing with more mature children at that point or adolescents. So going into that environment, some people, had said, what's the point of fifth grade? I mean, they're just little kids at that point. And I always bring up the point that when I've surveyed the people that I've worked with through my program, and it's literally been hundreds of adults over the last 10 plus years, the average age at which most people start using tobacco is 13. So that puts you right smack in the middle school range. That's 7th grade, 8th grade, somewhere in that ballpark.
Thinking that if you're in 5th grade, fast forward literally just a couple of years on the cusp of going into high school, you might try for the first time 7th or 8th grade.
And every time I go and I speak to this group of 5th graders at the elementary school, this is an annual thing that we started doing now. I always ask the kids to raise their hands if they know someone, not necessarily them, but someone in that school who has already started experimenting with tobacco. Not every hand goes up, but a lot of them do.
See, 2 is too many in my mind in your classroom. 2 or 3, it's like, come on, man, you're in 5th grade.
Right. So, again, we can't bury our head in the sand as adults and think that, oh, that's too young. Kids aren't doing that kind of thing. All right, think of yourself. That's the way I talk. When I talk to parents, I say, think of yourself when you were that age. Maybe you wouldn't have, but I know there are some that were experimenting with things at that age. And maybe it wasn't in 5th grade. You know, if that's, 11 years old roughly. By the time you get to 7th or 8th grade, things are starting to change a little bit. And considering that most of the adults that I've met, and even looking at the research, says that the average age where most people initiate regular tobacco use is around the age of 13 or 14. Okay. Pam and I are now seeing people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond who have been using tobacco products for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And when do you think it started?
Does that conversation come up? Does that conversation come up where people will talk about, well, I wish I wouldn't have started at this age, or this is how I got dragged into it, or however they started?
Absolutely. I mean, really, I hear that quite often. I wish I would have never picked this up when I was younger. And how is it, but I picked it up to look cool or to fit in, or we saw it, somebody had a cigarette or some other product, and I thought it was cool. I didn't realize that it would lead to this, and if I could have a do-over, I wouldn't have done this.
I actually spoke with a guy before I went to Southwestern 2 weeks ago that I'm working with right now, and I told him that I was going to be doing this, and he said, oh, man, if I could have a time machine and I could go back and attend with you and I was sitting in that room as a 9th grader, boy, if I could share what I know now with me back then, because that was the age when I first started experimenting with tobacco, he said, I would give myself a firm talking to and I would slap myself upside the head and say, look, don't be a fool. You have no idea what this is going to turn into now that I'm in my 60s. And everybody seems to think, and it's always interesting to see a student's reaction to this. When I look at the group and I say, here's the reality. You think it's not going to happen to you, but every adult that we work with says, I never thought I would be still doing this at this age.
Well, the addictive nature of tobacco, there are so many adults, there's so many 40, 50, 60, 70-somethings running around in this world that they say, hey, I tried it a couple of times, or I smoked when I was younger, and it was, you just stop, you just quit. And for some people, if you love eating butterscotch crimpets, you can quit eating butterscotch crimpets. You can stop. Boom, done. But there are so many others. I mean, the tobacco is addicting.
Right. That's a great point. There is a wide variety of people in the work that we do, talking to different people. There's a wide range of people. Some people can put that product down, walk away, and never look back.
Boom, done.
Everyone deserves credit in their quit process. Other people struggle daily with thoughts and how do I do this? How do I even start? Even if I really am ready and there's specific reasons in my life that are so important to me, my grandchildren, my money situation. I can't afford.
It's not cheap, yeah.
To buy this anymore. How do I even start? I've tried so many times. So that's when we can sit down and come up with a plan and talk about some different options, different cessation medication, different behavior changes, different changing routine, being around supportive people. What would help you? So it's so important to talk about it, and it's your life. You know how tobacco fits in, and it's important to talk about that and to help people. But different people need different things, depending on that person. Again, some people can put it down. Other people struggle, and it is about what would help the most. And we can't really, that's why it's so important to talk about exploring those options, to talk about it.
That's got to be tough for some of those folks that you talk to hear that. To hear, I'm so tired of hearing people, well, if you want to quit, just quit. It's not that easy. Not at all.
People say that all the time. I'm tired of getting bugged about this. I know how important it is, but I just don't know how. And so that's when we can really open up that conversation with a helpful approach to figure out, okay, what have you tried? What haven't you tried? Did you know about this? Did you know maybe with some of these cessation medications you could use too?
As hard as you guys work with the program, are there still a whole lot of people out there that don't understand it's not just one size fits all, that there are, you have a tool chest full of different options to help people?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that works against some people that are considering the idea of quitting or changing their tobacco use behavior is, our capitalistic market that's out there that really tries to build on this quick fix, one size fits all, do this, and it's the answer to your problem
We
mentality.
expect that for everything, Adam. We expect
Right.
it's like it's got to be guaranteed not to bust, must, collect dust, or rust, and it has to happen now. Like now.
I want a recording of what you just said, by the way. That was the coolest thing
great.
ever. But it is. It's that magic bullet mentality that there's this one thing that I just seem to be missing or that I haven't found yet that's going to be the answer for me. And so many people seem to think they're defective or dysfunctional or incapable or not smart enough or they don't have the right amount of willpower, which don't get me started on the willpower thing. Quitting tobacco is not a matter of willpower.
No.
Okay, that's the long and short of it. That's another show. But this idea that there's just this one thing you got to do, the one-size-fits-all approach. And anybody who's ever worked with Pam or myself or any of our counterparts, one of the first things they learn is that, number one, you got to be honest up front. And let's just talk about the problem as it is and realize that it's okay to ask for help. And number two, to look at it as, how is this a bigger issue than maybe what you realize? It's not like this problem just happens in a vacuum and you say, well, I smoke when I'm stressed. Well, let's look at what's really going on here. It's a thought process, and thought is kind of the precursor to behavior. So if I'm stressed out about something and I'm really worried or I'm scared or I'm upset for some reason, I want to calm down. The core message inside your mind is, I need to calm down. I don't like the way I feel. So depending on what certain types of behaviors you engage in or have been engaging in, think habit, then you're going to follow your programming, which says that I'm a tobacco user. When I feel anxious or upset, what I do is I smoke to try to calm down. So we need to kind of back up and think about our actions. I need to learn how to calm down differently, not using my insert tobacco product of choice here, cigarette in this case. How can we learn new strategies for managing or dealing with our stress where we don't have to reach for a cigarette to do it? It's reprogramming in a way, but we have to open up this idea that it's not just a bad habit or a dysfunctional pattern or because you're not smart enough. It's that you've learned a way that isn't very effective to help you change the way that you feel.
But I'm a guy, Adam. I'm a guy. Guys we don't need help. We don't ask for help. We can do it all on our own, and picking up the phone and making a phone call, like actually being a guy and saying, I need a hand with this? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's tough for a lot of guys to do, to knock on that door, or to open that door, to even, think about stepping foot in that door and saying, hey, I need some help with this.
But all the more reason to have somebody, and this is why I keep saying every time I come here, I have the coolest people that I get to work with, and that includes Pam in this case. Once we get an opportunity to sit down and connect with a person, I got to come in with an open mind. I don't know what the person sitting across from me's agenda is. I don't know what their fears are, what their apprehensions are, what their goals are. I'm a complete stranger. But if we can open up that door to that conversation, and I want to understand your struggles. Why are you here in the first place? Then we can meet on common ground. And I see that a lot with guys. And I think it's even more difficult when two men sit across from each other and try to have a meaningful, thoughtful conversation about something that's very, very personal.
Yeah, Joe Smoker gets home and his wife says, "How'd your meeting go?" I talked to this dude. He seems like he knows a lot, but I don't know. I mean, he says, the classroom, it's going to go this way, it's going to go that way. We got lots of options. I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, Pam, you probably hear the same thing. It's like,
yes,
I'm going to come to this thing and you're going to say, I have to stop and I have to stop. I've got 2 weeks and I'm done. Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's when people come to the group or come to see me, and they sometimes expect, okay, I have these expectations. She's going to tell me I need to stop, just like everyone else in my life. And all right, so one of the biggest thing is actually just making it, just being there and showing up and saying, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Let's just sit down and just tell me a little bit about yourself, anything that you're willing to share. When we talk about, again, emotions and feelings, this is all connected. How are we dealing with our feelings by using tobacco products? Let's just talk about what are some of these connections or triggers that make me want to smoke or use tobacco. So we just start the conversation there. And my goal is just to get to know the person. And again, what Adam said earlier, we don't know what that person's been through. We don't know their struggles. We don't know anything about that person. So it is important to listen. That's actually one of the most important things that we do, I think, is listen to that person and where they're coming from.
Show's Better Living on WHVR. It is brought to you by UPMC Pinnacle Hanover. Another short break, and we're back with one more segment of the show today. Adam Bennett, Tobacco Cessation Coordinator with UPMC Pinnacle Hanover. Pam Miller, exact same title? In York?
Exactly.
All right, so Pam Miller is the Tobacco Cessation Coordinator with UPMC Pinnacle Memorial. A supersized program, just kind of cool, with a lot more folks, a lot more people caring about you and trying to get you to that place where you don't even have to think about tobacco in your world. It's Better Living Radio on 1280 and 95.3 WHVR, brought to you by UPMC Pinnacle Hanover. Bill O'Brien along with the good folks from UPMC Pinnacle Memorial and Hanover. Pam Miller, Adam Bennett, Tobacco Cessation Coordinators from Memorial and from Hanover. It's like two times the energy and the knowledge in the building today.
Kaboom, here it is.
Supersized, amazing. Thanks so much. And we were joking when I saw you and met you Thursday at the topping off ceremony. It's like, you're not nervous at all, are you? And she's like, maybe a little. But, but I think about that. I think about the folks that you talk to. And the first time that they step into a room, whether it's just with you or whether it's one of the tobacco cessation classes and you're looking around the room or they're looking at you, our natural inclination is people looking at you, sizing you up like, okay, what,
Absolutely.
What are they going to make me do? Because, man, I want to be here, but I kind of don't. I'm freaking out here a little bit.
And I wonder how she's going to react, or
exactly
what she's like. And and people tell me, I'm here, but it's not pretty. I smoked on the way. I'm like, it's okay. You're here. We'll just have a seat. Would you like some water? We'll sit down and it's okay. Let's talk about some things.
Do everybody sit down and say, can it, like they pull out the pack of cigarettes? Sorry, wait. I guess I'm not allowed to do that in here.
Yeah, I had that in the last quick group that I did for a local company here, and they said, "Are we going to get to take smoke breaks during the class?" That was a legitimate question, and I just kind of looked at the guy and said, I want you to rethink that question, and then before you ask it again, ask yourself if you really think that's going to happen while we're here.
But so many folks reach for that tobacco source in stressful situations, and that's got to be taking them out of their comfort level to cross that threshold and at least meet with you and have the conversation.
Right, absolutely. And that could be one of the first things we talk about. If stress is a huge trigger, if I feel stress, this is my go-to. What can I do as far as my plan, what am I going to do to handle stress when I'm not smoking? So that is a huge topic that we talk about. Now let's think about some things. Let's talk about it. It's been a long time. Has there tell me about a stressful situation where you were able to delay smoking for a few minutes, or let's talk about what goes on when you talk about stress in your life.
It's a really complicated mix of things, and I guess this is kind of the way I try to wrap up all of our shows if you pay attention and listen regularly. But it's this idea that all too often we think, okay, what's the quick fix? Like you said, Bill. And if anything, I hope that by hearing a different voice today, some of you that are listening, hear Pam talk about, her own style and her spin on the same subject. We really need to stop and think and just kind of talk this through. When you sign up for a quit class, can you quit on the first day? Sure you can. You can do whatever you want. But I think what will put a lot of people at ease is the idea that what we're going to do is we're going to wade into the water first. And let's wade in together and just kind of get familiar with the fact that there aren't a bunch of sharks swimming around in this end of the pool, and that we need to kind of figure out where we are. And let's get established first. Because to just jump headfirst into quitting, while it might sound like a good idea in theory, you might not be ready for that yet. Now, if you want to and you've done some prep work and it's really important for you to quit, then we'll talk about getting you on the fast track for it. But we need to kind of make a calculated approach and come up with a strategy before we just toss you into the deep end of the pool where there's a lot of what-ifs.
Well, that's the difference between Bill O'Brien, Pam Miller, and Adam Bennett as far as how well we each can swim, our personalities,
right.
What turns us on, what turns us off, what scares us, what freaks us out. A lot of different things, and a lot of great information from Adam, from Pam. UPMCPinnacle.com/Hanover, UPMCPinnacle.com/Memorial. Tremendous information, and you guys are doing awesome work. It's one of those things where it's really a help to a lot of people who could be the strongest guy, the strongest gal on the planet. And this is one of those things that just totally takes them out of their element, off their game, like quit smoking, quit dipping, like get rid of tobacco. I'm insert blank here, and I'm stressed because of it, so I've got this. I've got this vice.
And you know what the best thing about what we do is? I think I can speak confidently for Pam on this as well. Our job is to give people their power back.
Absolutely.
It's not about what can I do to fix you, because I can't fix you. It's not my job to fix you.
No.
I want to help you get your power back so that you can start to change what you're doing and be the strong person, the tough person, the cool, the compassionate, the loving person you are, and do it in a healthy way. And that's what this is all about. And that should be the most exciting piece for people, is getting your power back and being able to do it in a way that's going to work for you when you thought it never would.
Putting the power in your hands, Adam Bennett, Tobacco Cessation Coordinator, UPMC Pinnacle Hanover, regular on the radio show. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Pam Miller, she is the same, Tobacco Cessation Coordinator with UPMC Pinnacle Memorial. Thanks for being a part of the radio show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. Look forward to having you back. The show is Better Living Radio. It's on 1280 95.3 WHVR, and it's brought to you by UPMC Pinnacle Hanover. More information, UPMCPinnacle.com/Hanover, UPMCPinnacle.com/Memorial. Find out more. Make a phone call. So we're back with more Better Living Radio tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Do the best you can to stay dry. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.